5 Brutal Lessons to Clear the Mind, Nietzsche and Epictetus. The cacophony of modern life is deafening, isn't it? A relentless barrage of notifications, opinions, demands and anxieties that leave our minds fragmented, buzzing like trapped flies against a window pane. We navigate a world that feels increasingly out of our control, desperately seeking anchors in a storm of constant change. In this relentless tide, clarity feels like a distant mirage, a luxury reserved for those who have somehow mastered the art of inner peace, while the rest of us are swept away by the currents of overwhelm. We are bombarded with advice, strategies, and quick fixes, each promising to declutter our mental space, yet often leaving us feeling more exhausted and confused than before. The very tools we use to connect can become instruments of our own distraction, pulling us further from the quiet center that we instinctively know exists but struggle to find. It's a paradox. In an age of unprecedented information and connection, we often feel more disconnected from ourselves, our thoughts scattered like leaves in a gale, our inner compass spinning wildly without direction. This pervasive mental fog doesn't just affect our productivity, it erodes our well-being, fuels our anxieties, and distances us from the very essence of who we are. The constant striving for external validation, the pressure to perform, and the fear of missing out create a fertile ground for this internal chaos, leaving us feeling perpetually on edge, as if a single misstep could send us tumbling into an abyss of self-doubt. We yearn for a way to cut through the noise, to find a profound and lasting sense of calm, not as a temporary escape, but as a fundamental shift in our being. This is where the wisdom of the ages, often dismissed as archaic or irrelevant, offers not just solace, but a powerful blueprint for navigating these modern challenges. We are not the first generation to grapple with the complexities of the human mind, the relentless onslaught of external pressures, and the yearning for a life lived with purpose and clarity. The ancient Stoics, with their unwavering focus on what lies within our control, and the radical insights of Friedrich Nietzsche, who dared us to embrace the fullness of our existence, offer profound, albeit sometimes stark, lessons that can illuminate our path. Their philosophies are not about simple positivity or superficial self-improvement. They are about confronting the fundamental truths of human experience with courage and intellectual rigor. They speak to the deep-seated human desire to understand ourselves, to find meaning amidst suffering, and to cultivate a resilience that can withstand the inevitable storms of life. We are looking for a way to reclaim our inner sovereignty, to disentangle ourselves from the external noise that threatens to dictate our thoughts and feelings, and to forge a path toward genuine mental liberation. This journey requires not just intellectual curiosity, but a willingness to engage with challenging ideas, to question our assumptions, and to apply timeless principles to the unique landscape of our contemporary lives. It's about understanding that true clarity isn't found by adding more to our lives, but by strategically and courageously removing what distracts us from our core. The problem we face is not a lack of information, but an overabundance of distraction, a surplus of external stimuli that drowns out our inner voice and fragments our attention. We are conditioned to seek external validation, to measure our worth by the fleeting metrics of social media, and to chase ephemeral pleasures that ultimately leave us feeling empty. This constant external focus creates a deep-seated anxiety, a feeling of being adrift without a true north. We crave control, yet find ourselves increasingly subject to forces beyond our immediate influence, leading to frustration, burnout, and a pervasive sense of helplessness. The modern world, with its relentless pace and emphasis on immediate gratification, actively cultivates this state of mental disarray. It encourages a superficial engagement with life, where deep reflection is sacrificed for quick reactions and profound understanding is replaced by fleeting opinions. We are bombarded with curated realities, idealized portrayals of success and happiness, which only serve to amplify our feelings of inadequacy and disconnection. This creates a vicious cycle. The more we feel overwhelmed, the more we seek external distractions, which in turn amplifies our overwhelm. We are trapped in a feedback loop of mental noise, desperately seeking an exit that seems perpetually out of reach. Our unique angle is to bridge the gap between these ancient, profound teachings and the immediate, visceral experience of modern mental clutter. We will explore how the rigorous self-discipline of Epictetus and the existential courage of Nietzsche offer not just philosophical frameworks, but practical, actionable insights for reclaiming our mental landscape. This isn't about adopting a new set of rules. It's about fundamentally shifting our perspective, about understanding the deep-seated patterns that lead to mental fragmentation, and about cultivating the inner strength to resist the siren call of distraction. We will move beyond generic advice and delve into the core principles that allow for a profound and lasting transformation of our inner world. This script is for anyone who feels the weight of mental noise, who yearns for a deeper sense of presence and control over their own thoughts and emotions, and who is ready to embrace a more intentional and meaningful way of living. We are not aiming for temporary relief, but for a sustainable cultivation of inner clarity, a robust mental resilience that can serve as a steadfast guide through the complexities of life, allowing us to not just survive, but to truly thrive. This journey will not be about finding an easy escape, but about forging a path through the very challenges that create our mental turmoil. We will examine the seductive nature of external validation and the illusion of control that often leads us astray. By understanding the core tenets of Stoicism and Nietzschean thought, we can begin to dismantle the mental architecture that perpetuates our anxiety and fragmentation. This is an invitation to engage with ideas that have shaped civilizations, to apply their timeless wisdom to the very personal struggles we face today. It's about understanding that the power to create mental clarity, to live with purpose, and to find genuine peace resides not in external circumstances, but within the depths of our own being, waiting to be awakened. This exploration promises a profound recalibration of our inner compass, guiding us towards a more focused, resilient, and authentic existence. The core of our modern mental distress often stems from a profound misunderstanding of where true agency lies. We habitually attribute our internal states, our happiness, our anxiety, our sense of fulfillment, to external circumstances: the job, the relationship, the societal approval, the material possessions. This external locus of control is a pervasive illusion, a subtle trap that keeps us perpetually seeking, striving, and ultimately failing to find lasting contentment. Nietzsche, in his relentless pursuit of understanding human motivation, identified this tendency as a form of weakness, a flight from the responsibility of self-creation. He urged us to recognize that our values, our interpretations, and our reactions are not dictated by the world, but are forged within the crucible of our own will. To truly clear the mind, we must first dismantle this ingrained belief that our external environment is the primary architect of our inner experience. This means actively questioning the narrative we tell ourselves about why we feel the way we do. Instead of saying, "I am stressed because of my workload," we might reframe it as, "I am choosing to interpret my workload as overwhelming, and that interpretation is causing my stress." This isn't about denying reality, but about recognizing the powerful, often unconscious role our judgments play in shaping our emotional landscape. Furthermore, Epictetus, the enslaved philosopher who rose to profound wisdom, offered a practical framework for this internal recalibration: the dichotomy of control. He taught that some things are within our power, and some are not. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions, these are within our control. Our bodies, our possessions, our reputations, our positions of authority. These are not. The persistent source of human disturbance, he argued, lies in our futile attempts to control what is beyond our grasp, and our neglect of what is truly ours to command. Consider the modern obsession with social media validation. We pour energy into crafting perfect online personas, anxiously monitoring likes and comments, seeking external approval for our very existence. These are precisely the things Epictetus would deem outside our power to truly influence in a meaningful, lasting way. Conversely, our ability to choose our response to a negative comment, to practice gratitude for genuine connection, or to disengage from the digital fray, these are within our direct purview. Shifting our focus, then, becomes a deliberate act of reclaiming our mental sovereignty, of investing our energy where it can yield genuine dividends, within the garden of our own mind. Building on this, consider the insidious nature of comparison, a ubiquitous byproduct of our hyper-connected world. We are constantly presented with curated highlight reels of others' lives, fostering a sense of inadequacy and fueling a relentless drive to keep up. Nietzsche would likely view this as a manifestation of the herd instinct, a desire to conform and avoid the discomfort of individuality. This constant outward gaze distracts us from our own unique path and devalues our personal journey. The mind, saturated with the perceived successes and possessions of others, becomes a battleground of envy and self-doubt. Consequently, the clarity we seek is obscured by the fog of what-ifs and if-onlys. To counter this, we must cultivate a practice of radical self-acceptance, recognizing that our journey is singular and inherently valuable, irrespective of external benchmarks. This involves actively limiting exposure to triggering content and intentionally focusing on our own progress, however small. It's about finding contentment not in outpacing others, but in the quiet, internal victory of becoming a better version of ourselves on our own terms. Conversely, the Stoic practice of premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils, offers a potent counter-strategy to the anxiety generated by uncertainty and unforeseen challenges. This isn't about dwelling on the negative, but about mentally rehearsing potential adversities with a calm, rational detachment. By confronting the possibility of loss, failure, or hardship before they occur, we inoculate ourselves against their emotional shock. For instance, if you fear losing your job, Epictetus would suggest contemplating this possibility not with dread, but with an assessment of your skills, your resilience, and your options should it happen. This mental preparation diminishes the power of the unexpected. It fosters a profound sense of preparedness, transforming potential crises into manageable challenges. Consequently, the mind, no longer paralyzed by the fear of the unknown, can operate with a greater degree of freedom and focus, unburdened by the constant draining anticipation of disaster. It's a proactive cultivation of inner fortitude that allows us to face life's inevitable turbulence with equanimity. Another crucial layer to achieving mental clarity lies in the deliberate cultivation of intentionality. In our hurried lives, we often move through our days on autopilot, reacting rather than acting, swept along by the momentum of habit and external demands. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, the overman or self-mastered individual, implies a life lived with profound purpose and deliberate choice. This isn't about grand, sweeping gestures, but about infusing the mundane with conscious intent. Consider the simple act of drinking a cup of coffee. Instead of gulping it down while scrolling through emails, imagine approaching it with full awareness. The warmth of the mug, the aroma, the taste. This practice of mindful engagement, even in the smallest of actions, begins to weave a fabric of presence throughout our day. It trains the mind to be where it is, rather than constantly dwelling in the past or anxiously projecting into the future. This deliberate infusion of consciousness into everyday activities is a powerful antidote to mental fragmentation, anchoring us firmly in the only moment that truly exists, the present. The relentless pursuit of external validation, a pervasive modern malady, not only fragments our attention, but also cultivates a deep-seated fear of vulnerability. We construct elaborate defenses, projecting an image of unshakable competence and unwavering certainty, all to avoid the perceived shame of admitting weakness or uncertainty. This constant performance, however, is emotionally exhausting and creates a chasm between our authentic selves and the carefully curated personas we present to the world. Nietzsche, in his examination of the will to power, recognized that true strength lies not in the denial of our limitations, but in the courageous affirmation of our entire being, including our imperfections. To clear the mind, we must therefore undertake a deliberate shedding of this protective armor. This involves consciously choosing moments to be transparent, to express genuine feelings, and to acknowledge when we don't have all the answers. Consider the professional setting. Instead of feigning expertise, admitting, "I'm not entirely sure about this, but I'm willing to explore it," can be a far more liberating and ultimately productive stance. This act of vulnerability, counterintuitively, fosters deeper connection and allows for a more authentic engagement with tasks and relationships, freeing up immense mental energy previously consumed by maintaining a facade. Furthermore, building upon the Stoic principle of focusing on what is within our control, we encounter the subtle yet powerful influence of our inner dialogue. The constant stream of self-criticism, doubt, and negative self-talk acts as a relentless internal saboteur, undermining our efforts toward clarity and peace. This internal monologue, often operating beneath conscious awareness, can be more destructive than any external criticism. Nietzsche, with his emphasis on self-overcoming, would urge us to become the architects of our own internal narrative, actively shaping it towards affirmation and growth. This requires a diligent practice of self-observation, becoming acutely aware of the recurring patterns of negative thought. Once identified, the work then becomes one of conscious reframing. For instance, if the thought, "I always mess things up," arises, a conscious reframe might be, "I made a mistake this time, and I can learn from it to do better next time." This isn't about forced positivity, but about a grounded, realistic, and ultimately empowering revision of our internal discourse, shifting from self-condemnation to self-compassionate growth. Conversely, the modern obsession with multitasking, often lauded as a sign of efficiency, is a primary culprit in the fragmentation of our mental landscape. We erroneously believe we can effectively juggle multiple complex tasks simultaneously, but in reality, we are merely rapidly switching our attention, a process that is both inefficient and mentally taxing. William James, the father of American psychology, extensively studied the nature of attention, highlighting its finite capacity. He understood that true focus requires a deliberate act of selective attention, the ability to hold one thing in mind while letting others fade into the background. To cultivate clarity, we must therefore embrace the power of single tasking. Now, consider how this applies when you face a complex project. Instead of trying to work on 3 different aspects at once, dedicate a focused block of time to just one. Turn off notifications, close unnecessary tabs, and immerse yourself fully in that single task. This concentrated effort, though it might feel slower initially, leads to deeper understanding, fewer errors, and a profound sense of accomplishment, ultimately clearing the mental clutter associated with constant context switching. Another crucial layer in achieving mental clarity involves understanding and actively managing our energetic output. We often operate from a place of depletion, mistaking frantic activity for productivity and pushing ourselves beyond sustainable limits. This leads to burnout, where the mind becomes sluggish, creativity wanes, and even simple tasks feel insurmountable. Nietzsche's concept of affirmation, of saying yes to life in its totality, extends to recognizing our own energetic boundaries and respecting our need for rest and rejuvenation. This isn't about idleness, but about intelligent energy management. Think about the cyclical nature of energy in the natural world. Seasons change, tides ebb and flow. Similarly, our own internal energy ebbs and flows. To foster mental clarity, we must learn to honor these rhythms. This means recognizing when we are operating at a low ebb and consciously choosing activities that replenish us, whether it's quiet contemplation, engaging with nature, or pursuing a creative outlet that brings us joy, rather than pushing through with demanding intellectual or physical tasks that further drain us. This conscious alignment with our energetic capacity is fundamental to sustained mental acuity and well-being. Finally, the profound wisdom embedded in the concept of amor fati, the love of one's fate, as articulated by Nietzsche, offers a powerful antidote to the anxiety born from resistance to reality. This isn't passive resignation, but an active, joyous embrace of all that life presents, the good and the challenging, as necessary and integral to our journey. When we constantly fight against circumstances, wishing things were different, we expend an enormous amount of mental energy in a futile battle. This resistance creates internal friction, clouding our judgment and hindering our ability to find solutions. To clear the mind, we must cultivate this radical acceptance. Consider a situation where a plan unexpectedly falls apart. Instead of lamenting the disruption, try to see it as an unfolding of events that, in its own way, is precisely what needed to happen. This perspective shift doesn't negate the difficulty, but it liberates us from the emotional burden of railing against the inevitable. By accepting our fate, not as a burden, but as a canvas upon which to create, we unlock a profound sense of inner freedom and mental spaciousness, allowing for clarity to emerge from the very heart of our circumstances. The bedrock of mental clarity, beyond the management of external influences and internal dialogue, lies in understanding and actively cultivating a profound sense of detachment from the outcomes of our efforts. This is not apathy, but a sophisticated form of non-attachment, a recognition that while we must act with full commitment and intention, the ultimate results are often beyond our complete dominion. Nietzsche's concept of the eternal recurrence, the idea of living each moment as if one would have to relive it infinitely, compels us to act with absolute sincerity and purpose, yet simultaneously liberates us from the anxiety of future consequences. When we are fully invested in the present action, without clinging to a specific desired outcome, our minds are freed from the corrosive worry about success or failure. Now, consider how this applies when you are working on a crucial presentation. Instead of obsessing over whether it will lead to a promotion, focus entirely on crafting the most compelling arguments, delivering them with conviction, and engaging authentically with your audience in that moment. This immersion in the process, devoid of desperate attachment to a particular result, allows for a more focused, creative, and ultimately more effective performance. The mental energy typically consumed by anxious anticipation is redirected into the task at hand, fostering a state of dynamic presence. Building on this, the Stoic practice of focusing on the virtue of an action rather than its external reward is paramount. Epictetus taught that the good lies in the quality of our intentions and the execution of our duties, irrespective of whether they yield praise, wealth, or recognition. The modern tendency, however, is to measure the worth of our endeavors by their tangible payoffs. This external metric inevitably breeds anxiety, as we become dependent on circumstances outside our control for our sense of value. Consequently, the mind becomes a restless churn of what-if scenarios, constantly calculating potential gains and losses. To cultivate clarity, we must consciously shift our internal reward system. When you engage in a challenging task, ask yourself not, will this make me rich or famous, but rather, am I performing this task with integrity, diligence, and wisdom? The satisfaction derived from acting virtuously, from fulfilling our responsibilities with excellence, becomes an intrinsic source of peace and mental stillness, independent of external validation. This internal compass guides us towards actions that are inherently meaningful, thus clearing the mental fog of external pressures. Furthermore, consider the impact of our relationship with discomfort. We are conditioned to avoid pain, seeking constant comfort and ease. However, Nietzsche, in his embrace of the difficult and his concept of amor fati, understood that true growth and mental resilience are forged in the crucible of challenge. Our aversion to discomfort often leads us to suppress difficult emotions, avoid necessary confrontations, or shy away from demanding tasks, all of which create internal pressure and mental clutter. This avoidance is a form of resistance, a constant expenditure of energy trying to keep uncomfortable truths or situations at bay. Conversely, learning to lean into discomfort, to view it not as an enemy, but as an opportunity for growth, can be incredibly liberating. For instance, when faced with a situation that triggers anxiety, instead of immediately seeking distraction or suppression, try to sit with the feeling for a few moments. Observe its physical sensations. Acknowledge the thoughts it brings, without judgment. This practice of mindful engagement with discomfort desensitizes us to its power and reduces the mental load associated with constantly trying to escape it, thereby clearing the way for greater mental freedom and clarity. Another crucial layer to achieving mental clarity involves cultivating a profound appreciation for the present moment, not as a fleeting concept, but as the sole reality we possess. While we've touched on presence, this facet delves into actively practicing gratitude for the immediate, the often overlooked details of our current experience. Our minds, accustomed to dwelling on past regrets or future anxieties, are perpetually absent from the now. This chronic absence fuels mental fragmentation and a sense of dissatisfaction. Nietzsche's affirmation of life in its entirety implicitly includes the present moment, with all its imperfections and ordinariness. To actively practice gratitude for the immediate, try a simple exercise. For the next hour, consciously notice and mentally acknowledge at least 3 things you are grateful for in your current experience. It could be the sensation of breathing, the light filtering through a window, the taste of water, or a brief, pleasant memory that surfaces. This deliberate act of focusing on the positive aspects of our present reality, however small, retrains the mind to anchor itself in the now, diminishing the power of distracting ruminations and fostering a deep sense of contentment and mental quietude. This consistent redirection of attention towards appreciation serves as a powerful antidote to the pervasive mental noise that often engulfs us. Reflecting on this journey so far, we've navigated the intricate landscape of the mind, charting courses through the turbulent waters of distraction and the subtle currents of internal resistance. The seeds of ancient wisdom, when cultivated with intention, have begun to blossom into tangible practices for reclaiming our inner dominion. We've glimpsed how the rigorous self-discipline advocated by Stoic philosophers, coupled with the profound existential courage championed by thinkers like Nietzsche, offers not merely abstract theories, but a potent, actionable blueprint for navigating the complexities of modern consciousness. The relentless pursuit of external validation, the seductive allure of multitasking, and the pervasive fear of discomfort, all identified as significant impediments to mental clarity, have been examined through a lens of transformative reframing. These are not isolated issues, but interconnected facets of a larger challenge, the human tendency to seek equilibrium outside ourselves, rather than cultivating it from within. As we pivot towards the final reflection, it's essential to recognize how these explorations converge, not as a mere collection of disparate insights, but as a unified tapestry woven with threads of self-awareness, intentionality, and acceptance. The cumulative effect of these principles is akin to a seasoned sailor adjusting their sails not to fight the wind, but to harness its power, steering a steady course through unpredictable seas. The mind, once perceived as a battleground of competing impulses and external demands, begins to reveal itself as a garden, capable of cultivation, where seeds of peace and purpose can take root and flourish. The echoes of past struggles and the anxieties of future uncertainties, which once seemed insurmountable, now appear as opportunities for deeper understanding and greater resilience. The path forward, illuminated by these converging insights, leads us toward a more profound and integrated way of being, where clarity is not a fleeting destination, but a cultivated state of presence. This transition invites us to consolidate these explorations, preparing the ground for a final anchoring affirmation that resonates with the awakened potential within. The journey through the labyrinth of the mind, guided by the stark brilliance of Nietzsche and the unwavering clarity of Epictetus, culminates not in a definitive arrival, but in the profound realization that the destination has always been within. We have explored the pervasive illusions that tether us to external validation, the fragmented nature of our attention in a hyper-connected world, and the deep-seated aversion to discomfort that often perpetuates our internal struggles. These are not mere philosophical curiosities, but the very architecture of the mental fog that obscures our natural state of clarity and peace. By understanding that true control resides not in manipulating external circumstances, but in mastering our internal landscape, our judgments, our reactions, our intentions, we begin to dismantle the edifice of anxiety that has been so meticulously constructed. The wisdom gleaned is not a set of rules to follow, but a reorientation of perspective, a courageous turning inward to reclaim the sovereign space of our own consciousness. This shift from external dependency to internal cultivation is the central revelation. It is the understanding that the power to experience peace, to act with purpose, and to live with unwavering presence is not a gift bestowed by the world, but an inherent capacity waiting to be awakened within. We have seen how embracing discomfort, practicing radical acceptance of what is, and focusing on the virtue of our actions rather than the outcome, liberates immense mental energy. This energy, once squandered on resistance and worry, can now be channeled into the art of living intentionally, of engaging with each moment as if it were the only one that matters. The cacophony of external demands begins to recede, not because the world has changed, but because our inner receptivity has been refined, allowing us to discern the signal from the noise, the essential from the ephemeral. The true practice, then, is not found in the accumulation of more knowledge or the adoption of new techniques, but in the persistent, gentle application of these core principles to the unfolding moments of our lives. It is in the quiet choice to respond with presence rather than reaction, to act with integrity even when the outcome is uncertain, and to embrace the entirety of our experience, the light and the shadow, with a spirit of courageous affirmation. The clarity we seek is not a static state to be achieved, but a dynamic, ongoing process of mindful engagement with ourselves and the world. It is the quiet hum of inner peace that arises from the conscious cultivation of our inner garden, a testament to the profound truth that the most transformative journeys are those undertaken within. The power to clear the mind, to live with purpose and to connect with the deepest currents of life, has always resided within you, waiting for your conscious acknowledgement and unwavering commitment.